My friends, I am back with another video for you. So thank you, Lord, for blessing me with the inspiration and give you guys another video that hopefully entertains you and helps you learn some things. And today we are going to talk about a conservathought, Kathy Zhu or Zhu. I'm not totally sure how to pronounce her name, but as you can see, here she is. She is I believe she's born in China, and she's been in the news a bit lately because she was part of the Miss World beauty pageant, the local one in Michigan, and they kicked her out for her political beliefs, seemingly, for how she talks about them on Twitter. She has a big following. As you can see, she's a cute Chinese girl, I believe, born in China. Now she's trying to be a leader in the conservative movements. In the conservative movement, you can see she has the MAGA hat there. She looks good in it. She looks good made up as a beauty queen or that. But there's got to be something more to you than just being a cute Asian chick, because let's face it, cute Chinese girls are a dime a dozen. In fact, in China, something that's very interesting and quite disturbing actually is where they deliver babies directly next to it in hospitals. Typically, they have another room where they abort babies, and frequently they abort females. So thankfully, Kathy wasn't aborted, but I saw today she's going off on a Twitter rant. But before I get to that and we critique what she's been saying, I want to share with you something from my personal life, as I often do on this channel, because it relates very much to what we're about to talk about. Now, where I live, and the city in particular where I live, it's dealing very much with mass migration from China, and particularly the apartment complex where I live. It's dealing very heavily. I live in this apartment complex. They had 4 buildings. I think they just added another 2 that they just newly opened. And these are tall towers, 40 stories each. I live on the 19th floor. But recently, in the last couple weeks, there's been an influx of hundreds of Chinese people moving into the apartment complex. And a lot of the residents, they're complaining very much. And there's even a Facebook page where you can post your complaints or what's going on. And so many local residents here, they're posting things about all the Chinese people. And they can be very blatant. There's not as much political correctness where I live, especially in terms of racial things. But they're very open that they don't like having all these Chinese people around, and they don't want people renting. They don't want people that own units to rent out to Chinese people. They're just very annoyed, and they're very concerned about the cleanliness of the building and certain other things. And so people can openly complain about it, but that's because I'm from a culture the local culture here, they can be more open about, at least in terms of these things. And the city's very much dealing with the effects of mass migration. I'm very sympathetic to that, of course. And one of the problems, too, is all the rents, with all the influx of all these new Chinese coming in, the rents are starting to get sky high, and it's starting to make it very hard for locals to be able to afford a place to rent, because these Chinese people, they come and they pay a lot to rent an apartment, and it's driving the rents way up, making it very difficult for the locals. And there's a lot of other problems. I mean, you can, in terms of the rents going up, think of what happened in Vancouver. The Chinese came and they bought up everything, and they bought at such high prices that Canadians can no longer afford to live in Vancouver, seemingly, from what I hear. And we're having similar experiences here, but like I said, this isn't in terms of race. You don't have to be as politically correct here as you do in America, and people can just be more open with their animosity towards other people. And I'm not that type of guy. I don't judge people, even though I'm more nationalistic. I don't judge people based off of their race or their country of origin, because the bottom line is that's all out of our control. We don't control where we were born. We don't control what our race is. So I don't like to judge people that way. And the problem is, as we're going to get to in the story, you can predict how certain, because I want to judge people by their thoughts, their character, their beliefs, but there's scientific data that you can accurately predict things like what people's beliefs are going to be based on what country they're from or what their race is. Think about anytime there's an election, they break it down in terms of demographics. 80 or 90% of black people, they vote Democrat. Certain other people from other demographics, they vote a certain way. So you can actually break this down. Funny enough, going back to some of how they're not so politically correct where I live, a lot of people here, especially the younger people, they refer to the Chinese as the Ching Chongs. That's just how they openly refer to them, and no one's really offended by it. In fact, recently I was doing an on-camera interview, and the person asked me on camera, so it's very tricky. You have to be very careful how you answer these things when you know it's being recorded. They said, "So what do you think of all the Ching Chongs moving in?" And I said, well, I have to be very careful because in my culture, people would probably be very offended by others referring to Chinese immigrants as Ching Chongs. But here where I live, this guy that said that on camera, he doesn't have any kind of fear that someday he's going to go in and apply for a job. And they're going to say, well, I see here you used a racial slur. You called Chinese people Ching Chongs, so we can't hire you. There's no fear about that happening from him. So that's something very interesting. But now let's get to Miss Kathy Zhu. And because like I said, she's originally from China. She wants to be a leader in the American conservative movement. And personally, I don't follow her, but that's because I don't want to hear from what women have to say on politics. To me, I just want women to have good values, to raise the children well, to raise the children with good values. If a woman can do that, she's doing her job, and she's doing the most important job in the world. And any woman that does that has all my respect. She gets the utmost respect from me. So I don't like to follow women talking about politics, and let's face it, a lot of them, they're just grifters. Kind of like, recently Lauren Southern or whatever, and it's very easy to infiltrate the conservative movement. All you have to do is get the talking points down, and it's so easy to infiltrate the conservative movement, especially if you're a good-looking girl, and if you're a good-looking racial minority, well, then you've got it made, someone like Kathy here. But let's get to what she said. Let's get to the controversy. So let's go to her Twitter. I posted a picture of me at a gay pride event today on Instagram. Conservatives started calling me a fake conservative and other disgusting things. Well, if that's the most disgusting thing you hear, Kathy, you've got life pretty easy. You can be gay / support the LGBTQ community and be a conservative. Y'all wonder why many people hate conservatives. So she's been going off on these Twitter rants. She's even posting actually what people exactly said to her here. And she's really looking for support and sympathy on Twitter. And, you can see she's getting it. I'm a conservative and I don't give a flying who you want to be with. Most of us don't. It's the radical alt-right that continues to give us a bad name. Believing in live and let live is conservative. Identity politics is not conservative. That's the difference. Well, I hate to break it to you, buddy. All politics are identity politics, whether you like it or not. And let's get to an interesting tweet here by her. This is something that I found intriguing. Kathy says, you don't have to be a Christian to be conservative. You don't have to be pro-life to be conservative. Like I said, she's coming from Chinese culture where abortion's no big deal. Maybe that's an influence on it. You don't have to hate weed to be a conservative. You don't have to be straight to be a conservative. You do not have to be traditional to be conservative. And she continues, conservatism is advocating for small government, individual freedoms, the Constitution, justice, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this guy here, one of the first replies, he basically sums up the end of the thread. He says, I think you mean libertarian. Well, of course. So this is why many people like me, we do not identify as a conservative. Because number one, this is what we can't stand about conservatives is, what the heck are you conserving? What's the whole point? Conservatives don't conserve anything. And you look at what they're doing, it's very much like Democrats. It's very much about virtue signaling and trying to be popular, and that's what people called her out on. Let's look at this tweet. You don't have to be a Christian to be conservative. You don't have to be pro-life. You don't have to hate, you don't have to be traditional to be a conservative. Well, what the heck is the point? that's for a lot of middle Americans. They're very into family values, and that's a great thing. Since recently starting my family, it's changed my entire outlook on life, and these things have suddenly become very important to me. And I have a new understanding that Kathy, this young, early 20s college student, Chinese girl, she doesn't have. And I'm not looking to take advice, political advice, from an early 20s Chinese college student. She's cute, don't get me wrong, but like I said, you got to have more substance than that. So let's take a look at some of these photos from the event. Here she is, very proud. This is a woman that wants to be a conservative leader. She wants to be your leader, guys. The irony in all this is that if the people at this event, if they knew she was such a big Trump supporter, they probably would not want her there. A great probably majority of the people at this event, if they knew that she would... Notice she didn't wear her MAGA hat to this event. And she's telling us what conservative is supposed to be about. Really, she just wants to focus on protecting corporations like any typical neocon, any typical conservative. The boomer conservative mindset is what's ruining conservatism for the newer generation. No, Kathy, you're the problem. Conservatives, we are tolerant and not triggered at everything like liberals. A conservative. I'm pro-LGBTQ and a conservative. Conservatives. No, you're not. You're a grifter and want people to like you. Fake conservative. Well, someone called her out. People aren't buying it. They don't want her to be a leader in the movement. Here's one of the best responses to her. You don't have to be a Christian to be a conservative, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to be a traditional to be a conservative, whatever. Cobra Power says, you don't have to be a conservative to be conservative. You can be as liberal as it gets and just call yourself conservative for attention and to be edgy. Well, that's exactly right. This guy hit the nail right on the head. And certainly, I'm not looking for any women to be our leaders, but especially any young person in particular. Look, there's always exceptions to the rules. There are women that can speak very knowledgeably about politics, and they're very good at it. But I don't think that should be the primary goal of a woman. Generally, I don't trust people that are like that, and there's so many of these girls they figured out, and they're just grifters, much like Candace Owens, much like Lauren Southern. They're merely grifters. They just want to say, hey, I'm a conservative, let me be your leader. Or like Ben Shapiro, and this is somehow worse than Ben Shapiro. Even Ben Shapiro wouldn't go this far because his ultimate goal is to subvert the conservative movement and subvert good wholesome American people. Even he wouldn't go this far and get on board with these things. So guys, you got to be careful out there. And of course, Kathy doesn't like any kind of criticism, so she's firing off on Twitter looking for support. Look, Kathy, you're a cute girl. I like the way you look. I feel it's a shame that they kicked you out of that beauty pageant for your political beliefs, but maybe you should think about cooling your political beliefs. That's not an order from me. I'm no one to give you commands or orders. That's merely a suggestion, and this is just how a guy with another perspective feels about things. So I'm just putting this food for thought out there. You're very good. You have some very good things going on, Kathy. You look good in that MAGA hat, Kathy. But I don't want you to be my leader. And people like you're the reason people like me do not want to be labeled as a conservative. When people like me see conservatives like you, we want to run the other way. In fact, what you're actually doing, Kathy, conservatives like you're validating everything those white nationalists say. As I was talking about demographics, they can predict the way people are generally going to feel about things, people from certain demographics. All you're doing, Kathy, is proving those guys very right. So there you go. You just validated the white nationalists and the alt-right, people that you don't want to be associated with. You're just out there proving them right. So this is some food for thought, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to click over to another video. God bless you.